discussion with panels. So it seems as though data visualization can be used for a lot of things. Finding patterns that we would never find, dealing with these huge data sets that are numbers and letters that I didn't know about this, to Tara, way bigger than that, and communicating. So I'm interested, are most fields using these equally? Are some fields really leaning on the communication and dealing with the data set? Are they doing different stuff? Juno, why don't you do this?
So my perspective on this actually is evolving all the time. Fields, you get to a certain point where your data demands a higher level of understanding. And when you hit that point, then you really need these tools because, and you hit it in different dimensions. So for example, in mineralogy, you have a problem of sparse data and high dimensionality data. In astrophysics, we have a problem of large quantities of data, high dimensionality of data, in some cases sparsely sampled, time-varying data. In other fields, they have a problem of, you can't make a mistake, like when you're doing brain surgery. And so every field hits this wall at a different place, and that's why what they do at SKI is so exciting, because they really are able to zoom in on what is needed for that particular subdiscipline.
Follow up, what we have seen is exactly that, is that all these fields are becoming basically data science fields. They're driven by data, and whether that's from explosions of experimental data, from new imaging data, from sensor data, from the size of the new computation, the sizes are just getting so big that they're not able to use their more traditional methods to be able to analyze it. And one example was that Connectome data set that you saw that we had. It was so large. What they had to do is, what we really need to do is to track those different neurons through all those different electron microscope images. And traditionally, those were biology graduate students sitting in front of a computer screen, manually going and doing this on every single neuron, and then they would do the next slice and do this and this and this. And the data sets got so large that they did a quick calculation that if they were able to do like one image every 5 seconds, that it would take them 8 years to do one full volume at that resolution. And that's getting a little long for a PhD.
Even for grad school, that's too long.
So then they need some help with that in terms of computational algorithms, some visual analysis, and that's when we start seeing them come to our door.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that's been really interesting with me, moving to science and into the media, is that we know now that just giving people numbers and data isn't necessarily going to inform their decision making. And that people actually learn a lot better from stories. They remember more things that they hear in a story than they would hear just numbers. And I'm so interested, like, what is the potential for storytelling with this? I mean, you did a little bit of it, so let's talk about it a little bit, Chris.
Yes, and it is, I think, when we do our best jobs with visual analysis and the communication of that, it's through storytelling. And within the visualization research community, there are whole workshops on storytelling with visualization. And I think much of it came from, we learned a lot from the computer graphics animation industry and one of our famous alums at Pixar, because whenever they're doing the new latest Pixar movie, they're doing all these storyboards. And one of the things I talked about with Ed Catmull was there's so much attention paid to the computer graphics technology and special effects and all of this. And he said that actually comes much later after the story is done. The story is first. What is the story that you want to communicate effectively? And then you find the right way to communicate that. And for us, it's what are the right visual abstractions and mappings and techniques that we can best tell that story for the scientists to better understand and communicate their data.
Absolutely. I mean, Shauna, is storytelling something that you all focus on, and how do you do that exactly?
Yes, absolutely. As Chris pointed out earlier, we are very visual creatures, and I think that, and we often think in this kind of linear storytelling fashion. So, we're often thinking about evolving systems, and so we like to think about this, from, the formation of a planetary body and what has happened both from a geologic perspective and from a biologic perspective throughout time. So we think of it almost in a temporal sense often. And I think for me, understanding an evolving planetary body, that storytelling aspect has been extremely helpful.
I mean, you say storytelling, I say theorist. So, I mean, I do think that that's what these visualizations are doing. Our stories are our way that we're understanding, in my case, the universe, in Shauna's case, the earth, in Chris's case, the brain, or all the other stuff. I think that theoretical guidance is what helps us interpret the data. It helps us understand what kind of data we need to break a certain degeneracy or problem that we're facing. And so, I think story is just a fancier word for theory, right?
Absolutely. So anytime we have an emerging field, like data visualization, anytime we're really moving in a new direction, we have an opportunity to bring in new people, new ideas, new tools. I mean, Shauna, do you see this as an opportunity to build a more inclusive workforce, especially for women and people of color? And how do we do that moving forward?
I see this as an incredible opportunity, and I think everyone up here would agree with that. Data science democratizes science. All you need to be able to do this usually is a laptop and access to the internet. A lot of people don't have access to elite universities or to $1 million pieces of equipment or $2 billion satellites, right? And by putting the data out there and by making all of this available to everyone, you're now giving people access to do their own science with just their laptop. Chris emphasized the open source nature of everything that he's doing, and I think that's critical. And I think that's how we democratize science. Make everything that we're doing open access and everything that we're doing open source. And it just levels the playing field.
I mean, what about the workforce in general? Do you think that having that open access is going to invite people that haven't traditionally had the resources to go into science to really make that shift and make that move? And and who's out there to kind of to move that along, like any programs specifically or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's for everybody.
Yeah, I think that it's really going to change the way the workforce is coming about. And I mean, I know people who have no formal data science training who have gone to places like edX and Coursera, and there are a number of these, just completely open and often free programs where you can learn to become a data scientist. They have no formal training, and they essentially go on and become data scientists and go and actually enter the workforce to do this. So I think there are a lot of programs out there. I'm sure you guys know even more than I mentioned.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of programs, and I think that it's important, he who pays the piper, or she who pays the piper calls the tune, and it's important to remember what tune that you're calling. So in the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, we make all of our data with tools for a broad range of audiences publicly available so that little kids can play with the data, retirees can play with the data, astronomers can play with the data, biologists can play with the data, and that has made the data more useful. So it's really counterintuitive, and it's something that as humans that kind of are trained to hoard resources, it doesn't make sense, but your data is more useful if you just give it away. And of course, there's no money to be made in Galaxy data, so, I mean, when you're looking for gold, that's a different story.
I have a colleague who talked about this data hoarding in the past, where some people, because they've spent so much time getting the data, they don't want to share it, and he used to recast the term data mining as data mine. And I think we're seeing this tremendous transition where we have open science and it's open data, it's open models, it's open sources. And I do think that it helps forward science in general, and it makes it available for everyone to participate. And one of the exciting things that the Open Space Project is doing is making all of that available. And one thing we're doing right now is we're in the process of doing a virtual reality version of open space. So in case you don't have your own planetarium or large wall to do this on, that you can now get these ever less costly virtual reality devices and put them on and see the entire Sloan Digital Sky Survey. And I was thinking about myself as a kid, painting the glow-in-the-dark ceiling of the stars on your ceiling, and now instead you're going to put on your VR glasses and you're going to go look at NASA and walk on Mars from the Mars rover missions and things like that. And by kids, I mean pretty much, any age. But it's going to be very cool because it's all going to be open and available.
Awesome. Well, we have 2 microphones.